Hi everybody, John Hinn with the Pulsing Cinema. The movie of the day is late 70s Brian De Palma, Obsession, starring Cliff Robertson and Genevieve Bujold. Directed by Brian De Palma, written by Paul Schrader, and devised as being kind of a riff on Vertigo. You know, I mean, a big takeoff, riff, quotation, homage, what have you from Vertigo. You know, Brian De Palma was famous for taking hooks and taking little things from Hitchcock and making them into his own film. In the case of Obsession, I mean, and Brian De Palma didn't see it as a ripoff. You know, his thing has been, Hitchcock created this kind of cinematic language, and I'm using that cinematic language, that framework, or whatever you want to say, you know. But the world, if there was no ripoffs, there would be no rock and roll, there would be no movies, there would be no nothing. So, with that being said, this film's definitely kind of a Vertigo type film. This wealthy New Orleans land developer played by Cliff Robertson. His wife is kidnapped and he loses her, and then he goes to Europe and to France years after this kidnapping, and he actually sees someone who looks exactly like her, like a dead person, you know. So then there begins this obsession with this woman whose image is so alike, and it turns out, obviously, in the end, spoiler alert, it's his friend, the John Lithgow character, who, you know, is John Lithgow. He's a creepy guy, you know. He's like Salieri, you know. When John Lithgow shows up in a movie, it's going to be something heavy usually. So John Lithgow is the guy, his business partner, who's manipulating him and who's put this woman here, and then the revelation of who this woman really is, and then the whole film ends. Apparently the film had a really elaborate ending, which was like a whole separate act, another act of obsession. And Brian De Palma was like, I can't film this ending. It goes on too long. It gets too involved. And so he redid the ending. And Paul Schrader, I think, never forgave him. It was a whole thing. I don't know. Recently, the film was released in a really great special edition Blu-ray from Arrow, and it had a long documentary that I have not seen. But I'm sure that's going to be that's an interesting film. It'd be an interesting film to get to import from Arrow in the UK, because the movie is just great. The movie is just prime Brian De Palma, full of his camera tricks. But really, the film is a showcase for Cliff Robertson. Cliff Robertson, one of the great actors, a guy who came out of television and did television in different parts of his career. Great actor from the 60s. The Flowers for Algernon, Charlie. He did that Charlie film, which he won the Academy Award for. It had a bit of a scandal in the early 70s, where he exposed some corruption in Hollywood, and some things where he says he was blackballed for a number of years. Just a great actor, you know, passed away in 2011, and had a little tiny bit part in Spider-Man. Great little. I love seeing him in Spider-Man. It was great. He was like the dude from Superman. You know, he's just getting old. Like Kevin Costner and Cliff Robertson and Glenn Ford, you know, in Superman. You just get an old actor, have him play the father or the uncle figure, and then have him die at the beginning. That's like the archetype for the modern for the modern superhero film that Dick Donner, you know, set up with Superman, you know, I guess. But Cliff Robertson, man, it really is his film. You see his intensity through his eyes. I mean, Cliff Robertson was one of those actors who could just act through his eyes. The guy could be standing still and nothing, and you just see those eyes glimmering, and the film just looks so, and it really catches those, just that just a stare of love and obsession and romance and need and desperation. You see all of that stuff in this. And he's just one of those characters, one of those guys who can just communicate so much through a glance. Yeah, Cliff Robertson, one of the great underrated actors of cinema who could just do so much with so little. And this film, as much as it is a Brian De Palma film, and there is that extravagance of plot and the Hitchcockian stuff and the cinematic bag of tricks that he brings, it really is subdued, and it really is a showcase for the great acting of Cliff Robertson and then the young talent of Genevieve Bujold. Who shows up in it. And she didn't really do a lot in the film, as I remember, but because I just focused on so much. Oh my God, this guy is great. Why don't we hear more about this guy? Why did this guy do more stuff? It's just great. It really had his heyday in the 60s and 70s, and then kind of went into doing other stuff in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. But man, what a great actor. So, Obsession, great actor, UK Blu-ray. Hopefully there will be a US Blu-ray edition. I don't know if there is one at this point. But the extras, I think, are on that UK Blu-ray. Make it worth searching out. So, yeah, Obsession, Brian De Palma. Really obscure for many years. Not widely available on VHS. The DVD came out, but now with the UK Blu-ray, it's definitely worth tracking down.